Welcome to the Beacon Way podcast, where your hosts, Jennifer Christensen and Adrian Wilkerson, talk shop about what really works in today's digital marketing world. As the co-founders of Beacon Media and Marketing, Jennifer and Adrian have been a part of digital marketing since its early stages in the mid-2000s. Tune in as they shine light on what works and what doesn't in the ever-changing world of digital marketing for small businesses.
Hi, this is Jennifer. Thanks for joining us again on the Beacon Way podcast. And I'm really excited to have Robert joining me today. Thank you so much, Robert.
Sure, Jennifer. My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So we'll have a lot of information about Robert in the bio, but heard about Robert through multiple different people that highly recommended him as a coach. He's working with entrepreneurs, but I'll let him get right into it and what he does to help people, how he got into this, a little bit about his story. But I'm really excited for some of the actionable information I think we're going to have takeaways from today. Just in my previous conversation with Robert, had some great information that even helped me, even though I'm not in a family business. So I think it can apply to a lot of people. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this. I think it's you and your wife that are doing it together, right? And that was the heart behind it.
Yeah. And then when we talk about family business, a lot of people think the family members have to be involved, whether it's your spouse and kids and all that, but that's not necessarily the case, right? The fact that you own a business, you're married, and if you have kids, it's a family business because it helps the family.
Right.
And they're all stakeholders and they're all important stakeholders. And family business, I use that in a very general term, meaning that, hey, you own a business, you're married, and if you have kids, we don't have kids, but still it's part of the family. And so what we do is help really business scale and grow to have greater freedom so they can focus on their spouse, their family, and have a life that they really wanted when they started this business. When a lot of business owners, as they start into this entrepreneurial world, they want it for income, of course, but also for freedom. But then years later, all of a sudden they find themselves enslaved to the business more than if they were a W-2 employee. And so I said, okay, that's not what they want. It's not just the income. It's an income issue too, but it's not just that. We fell in this niche, my wife and I, to really noticing that most business owners are married. And they're working so hard that their family life is suffering.
Right.
So as we're helping them build this business, we're noticing this dynamic. And also it reminded us of our past growing up in entrepreneurial households where there was a lack of balance. Our dads are working so hard. They're providing for the family, right? That's goal number one. But yet they weren't having enough time, spending enough quality time with wife and kids. And in fact, my wife and I joked that the business was the mistress in their marriage. They're working so hard on it. And it's not any real fault of our dads. It's really about how we're raised and our mindset that everything has to be focused on the business so our life can be better. But yet, regardless of how much money you make, and it's not even just for businesses that are struggling, it's even, we've got clients where their business is doing well financially, but the owner is so focused on growth, on just working the business because that's the work ethic. Our identity gets tied into our work. And so we don't know what else to do besides work. And so even if we had the finances to actually slow down and enjoy life more, we just can't even pull away because that's how we're wired, is just to keep working. And so whether their business is struggling or they're doing well financially, it's really helped them find balance in all this and how to make sure they're having a fulfilled life, making sure the priorities are the priority, that their family is first, and then they still leave them tons of time to grow a healthy business.
Yeah, I love that. You said a couple things that really stood out to me. So one, being an entrepreneur myself, I've definitely noticed there's almost a personality that's drawn to it. That's really that hardcore driver personality. Mm-hmm. That's definitely me. I'm very grateful my husband is not that way so that we balance each other out really well. I'm really grateful. But you said identity, and that's really what kind of clued me in on this. So is that kind of a piece that you start with at the beginning of just looking at how is somebody identifying themselves or the mindset? Is that part of that process of maybe learning how to live a little bit different way?
Yeah, we don't formally go into it, but yes, that's what we're looking at is essentially why. We go into the why of why are you so putting everything, a priority and focus into the business? without talking about identity formally, but why. And it goes back to childhood, how we're raised. Both Kaylee and I are raised with strong work ethic, which is very important. And if you're going to
Absolutely.
succeed in anything, you have to have a strong work ethic. But it's when it starts to teeter on time and it starts to encroach on your family, they're the priority, right? This is why you're building this business, is for them, but you should be part of that. And so the why is, why can you not tear away from business, from work?
Yeah.
And it goes back to childhood. It's how we're raised. And we just walk into that and say, okay, is this how you want to live the rest of your life? And when you get to 60 and you look back, are you going to have any regrets? Like the kids, as they grow up, a friend of mine, a friend of ours, just told us this thing where, and it's true, right? The most time you spend with your kids is that first 17, 18 years of their life.
Right.
That's when you have the opportunity to spend as much time with them as possible. And then afterwards, once they go to college, and especially once they get their career, they're moving out, right? And get married. Of course, then they have their own life. So in those first 17, 18 years, are you going to have, as you look back at when you're 60, are you going to have any regrets looking back?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we just walked into the process. Yeah, we're really poking identity issues, but
Right.
we're trying to do it for them to look at it. And then it's almost like the ghost of Christmas future, go in the future and look back. And so that's how we walked them through, for them to have their own realization as, hey, before we get too crazy here, before we do hit 60, let's fix some things before we get there. Because there's a book out by Bronnie Ware called the top 5 regrets of the dying. And she was a palliative care nurse, and her patients are end of life. And she started asking her patients, hey, was there anything you'd do differently? And she listed the top 5 most common regrets. And it all had to do with how they took care of themselves,
Right.
how they took care of their relationships. Number 2 regret was working so hard and not having time with their family. And so all those 5 regrets had nothing to do with accomplishments, achievements, and their business and wealth and all that stuff. It all had to do with their self and their relationship. And that's the thing that we can't control. We can't control exactly how well our business does, but we can control how we do relationships and how we take care of ourselves. And so why don't we take care of that first, and also break the mindset of, when we focus on ourselves and our family, that it's going to hurt the business. That's the mindset I think we have, right? If we pull back a little bit on the business, we think the business is going to crumble. And if it really is going to do that, then we've got an issue to fix in the business.
Right.
And so that's a question we have. If you pull back for a year, what's going to happen in the business? And then we say, now we know what to fix in the business so that you can have a more sustainable, scalable business. Because when you have a more sustainable business, that means you can pull back, number 1. Number 2 is you have a business that you can sell. It's going to be sellable because it's not tied to you. And it's obviously going to be running better because it's not everything's tied to you. It's going to be able to grow beyond your capacity, which means now you have a scalable and sustainable business.
We have a saying at Beacon, because we have had such a high growth number of years, and it's a mindset for ourselves as well as this is common knowledge, but I think it's easier said than done. And that is hiring people better than yourselves. And that the same team that took us here is not going to be the team that gets us to the next spot. And the really harsh truth of that is that it probably includes us, right? It probably includes that, okay, I was a great founder to this level, right? But now what am I great at, and who could do better than me in those positions? And so it's an interesting process to go through. You have to continue to let go of ego.
Yeah. That's the hard part, right? I myself included. I'm in that same boat.
Yeah.
That when someone's trying to take over and they're doing something better than you do, you feel like, and so what we do is we remind our clients is this doesn't mean that you're not a good leader. It means you're a great leader because you're allowing somebody to step up.
It's the best feeling in the world. Honestly, once I got over the mindset of that I'm supposed to be all these things, which is impossible, then now it's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like I get to celebrate us doing better work as a company and celebrate the person doing it. And it's all positive. But I feel like it's one of those very simple concepts, but not easy to execute.
Exactly. It's simple, but it's hard to do.
Like a lot of things in life.
It's more mental and emotional, right, than it is physical.
Yeah. I want to share, and I'd love to hear some stories of people that you've worked with if they have stories like this. So I have 3 kids in their 20s. One's just turning 27. She's a lawyer in New York City. 2 that are 25 and 24. They're both in college in Anchorage, where I am. And this last Christmas, all of us were going to be together for the first time in a couple of years, where she wasn't traveling to visit her fiance's family, and just it all came together. And about a month before me realizing how important this was, I just chose to be incredibly intentional about my time and making sure, like, I have not done this in the past, but making sure I really have this time dedicated for them. I am not going to be focused on work. I'm not going to even, it was just this very dedicated choice going into it. And it was the best Christmas we have ever had as a family. It was so special. And it really brought home that concept to me of just the intentionality of what really matters. I know that.
Yeah.
But to make the conscious decision ahead of time of I'm not going to let, no matter what's going on. And certainly, like always, there's always stuff going on. But it's not what's most important. Yeah.
And the business survived, right?
We're doing great. We're doing great. We're thriving. Yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah. And so you hit the nail on the head, right? Intentional. It's really about being intentional with the time. And when we talk about work-life balance, people think, oh, we got to spend all this time with family and our spouse and all that. And I said, no, it's not about how much time.
Right.
It's about the quality of time.
It is.
When it's Christmas time, when you're around with the family, be with the family, not be checking your phones, not be thinking about business issues, right? It's just being there, being present when you're there. Just even on weekends and whenever you have that time that's away from business, you just shut it off, because the business is going to survive. Number one, you got a team. They're going to figure it out. If they can't get a hold of you, they're going to figure it out. And it's an opportunity for them to grow and lead and build the business without you. And so anyways, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you're able to do that and how rewarding that is.
It's the best. Yeah. I definitely wish I would have gotten here sooner. I am grateful that I didn't go into doing this until the kids were pretty much older. I don't know that mentally I could do that, but I know people do. I know I have a lot of friends that have young kids and are entrepreneurs, and I have a lot of respect for that, because that's a tough one. It's a tough balance.
For sure.
So what do you see as the people that move through this? They call you. I assume is there some event that usually happens that causes them to call you? Is there some pain point or something? Usually we don't change unless something happens, right?
Yeah, they get to the point where they say, this isn't working. And it could have been a specific event, or they're just starting to feel the pressure just mounting. And there's more conflict in a relationship. There's all kinds of stuff. And most of the people that call us, they're usually husband-wife teams.
Right.
And so they go on Google and they find us because we're one of the few people that are doing this. And because of that, we're number one ranked in Google for marriage and business coach.
Nice niche.
Yeah. And so people just find us online. And we ask them all the time, how'd you find us, number one? But number two, what caused you to look out for us? And they said sometimes it's not anything, one specific issue or event, but they just have felt the pressure over time. And now they're just at this point. I was like, we got to fix this. Otherwise, one of them sees the writing on the wall. If they don't fix this now, they're going to have a big issue later. And neither of them want that. And so they call us. And the beautiful thing about the work we do and the clients we have is that they're both all in and want to fix this thing.
I love that.
Right? It's not like marriage counseling where the wife or the husband goes in and they can't drag the other person in, but they're both coming in going, we see the issue. We want to fix it. How do we do it? And we only typically work only with when the couple, and even if they don't work together, but we only work with the couples. You both got to be all in on this. Because it's a faster way to fix this thing when both of you are all in. Right?
Yeah. And so, like you said, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, my husband is not a part of this business. We actually started our business together. So maybe we'll be calling you as well. But we started a separate one together. To me, like he's as much a part of my team, right? Of course, in the work I'm doing, I couldn't do what I do if he wasn't doing what he does. It goes both ways. So I see that.
Yeah. And even like in your case, like when we have couples, when one of them isn't working the business, we show them how even the spouse that's not working the business, the value they do bring to the business.
Yeah,
just as outside counsel, because they're not, because sometimes when they're not working in business, they offer better counsel because they're not ingrained in some of the issues and they don't have a biased way of thinking.
right,
It's just like a consultant or coach. Like we come in, we don't have any bias to the business because we haven't been involved with it until now. And so
right,
we can see things a lot clearer
right.
than when you're actually working in the business. So we always let them know, hey, really value the opinion of your spouse. Just because they're not working the business doesn't mean they don't have some good advice to give you.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that is a highly underrated part of the conversation is how much, and I remember, I think it was Sheryl Sandberg that said that one of the most important decisions you make in life is the spouse you pick, like as far as just the whole entire quality of your life, your career, all those things.
Sure.
And I can say that is true with James. He brings a wisdom. He has that gifting for wisdom and discernment, and he'll see things way ahead that I'm not seeing at all because I have my head down. And I've told him this. It makes him really happy. I'm like, if I would just have listened to you sooner, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I could say the same thing, Jennifer. When my wife has a feeling, I listen, I stop and I listen because early in our marriage, when I didn't listen to her feelings, it cost us a lot of money,
Right?
unfortunately.
He's got that. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, especially when it's business related, right?
Mhm.
If whatever decision we make, it's going to cost money. So one way or the other, we're going to gain or we're going to lose.
Right.
so, and so it took me a couple times, but then afterwards, I'm like, I probably should listen when she has a feeling.
Yeah. Once you get three or four in one direction,
Yeah, once it hurts enough, then you go, yeah, I probably
exactly.
listen.
And we all have our blind spots. So when somebody else it's the thing is somebody has your 100% best interest at mind,
Yeah.
right? At heart, and they know your blind spot. You've got a huge advantage. So people that are in business, whether it's like you said, they're working with their spouse or their spouse is at home, what are some of the core pieces that you could share today of things that you see that people, some maybe even just two or three things that you feel like are foundational to being able to move towards that balance of putting your family first?
First of all, just in your home life and your business, it's going to take being able for the two, husband and wife, to be able to come to agreement on something, regardless of that is. And so coming to agreement to be able to be better teammates together, right? How do you work well as a team? And too many times, the reason why it's not just a lack of balance, but when not just the relationship suffers and even the business, there's issues, it's that the two just can't come to an agreement on things. Disagree on how many hours you work or who to hire or even the boundaries you put between business and home. These kind of things, these discussions that need to be had as husband and wife, a lot of times they turn into arguments, and those arguments turn into major conflict. And so if there's one thing you work on that will help you just move your life and your business forward in a very more sustainable way, is to be able to understand how to do conflict. And the key to that is knowing that, and you already know this intuitively, but you don't know at heart, is that we're both different. We come from different backgrounds. We have different ways of looking at things. We have similar ways, right? Because there's similarities, but there's also differences. And when we're dating, those differences are really attractive.
Right. Right.
Right. But for some reason, when we say I do, they obviously become irritating. It's interesting. It's weird, right? Think about it. Oh, she's so fun. He's so smart. He's so intuitive. And next thing you know, when we get married, man, you're irritating. Why do you always have to look at all the details? And why are you always off the cuff and so too spontaneous? We got to plan this thing out. You know the drill, right? And if you're listening, the drill. And so it's like going back to saying, look, our differences are complementary. That's why we were attracted to each other. And when you look at it from a business perspective, you surround yourself with people that have different strengths than you do anyway, right?
Yeah.
If a good company is going to have not a bunch of Jennifers, right? They're going to have people that have different skill sets because we're not all good at everything.
Thank
And so,
God.
yeah. And so just like in a marriage, we're not good at everything. And so you got to be able to use those differences to be complementary and use them as strengths and understand that you're on the same team. You want the best for each other. You might just have a different look on a way of looking at things,
Right.
but it's having to have that conversation and not start to get critical, but have that conversation and an open mind to look at things maybe a little differently, and then come to a solution that's good for us, not good for me. I remember when we get into conflict, then it becomes a power struggle, and it's like it's a win-lose thing. It's a zero-sum game. It's I need to prove my point, or she needs to prove her point or whatever. And we're just going round and round.
Right.
And one thing Kaylee said to me early in our marriage that totally just shook me and just totally changed my outlook on how we do conversations and conflict is we had a disagreement on a business issue. And then she said her piece, and then she just said, I know you'll make the best decision for us. And for whatever reason, that word us just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, oh, this isn't about me.
I love that.
Right. And I had to, it stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, okay, I'll think about this. And I thought about it for a week. And I'm like, so I started looking at my view, and I started looking at her view.
Right.
And around and around, I'm like, yeah, she's right. This is the best decision for us. And it wasn't like because she's right or I'm right. It wasn't that the issue. It was just, I was able to look at both how I looked at it and how she looked at it without any kind of reservation or kind of any bias about, I've got to be right. I wasn't looking at her opinion as trying to pick a hole in it. I was trying to look at it, really say, okay, how would this work? And how would this work for us? And that just changed me. And so knowing, number one, we know we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We have differences, but it's good. Sometimes I'm right, but sometimes she's right. And I don't want to always have to try to be right, because then I'm going to, like I said earlier, I'm going to make decisions that are not the right thing for us because I didn't take her views into account. And so knowing that we're on the same team, we want the best for each other, and just knowing how, just really using each other's gifts as opposed to make it as a conflict. A long way of saying is knowing that you're on the same team, appreciate each other's gifts, and making decisions that are good for us, not just for you or just to prove yourself right. So
Yeah,
I'll just end with that because I could go on and on. But
I think that is incredibly powerful. Again, it's a simple concept, and yet I know I've missed it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is really good. It reminds me of my husband and I have been married 30 years, and
awesome.
Really grateful. We have a really good marriage. In the first 10 years, we had a lot of struggle. We didn't share faith, and we didn't share a lot of things in common. And we were just like constantly. But this one marriage course we went through, for some reason, what stuck out to me, and it really helped whenever we would get into these arguments, is it's such a simple concept again, but it was basically, you have to remember you're playing couples tennis. You're on the same side of the net. You're working together. You're not like playing against each other. And it was that flip for me going into, oh, yeah, we're not arguing against each other. We're actually working together to try to win in our marriage or whatever it is. And it just, for whatever reason, that particular thing, such a simple thing, but it changed me to more of a us mentality.
Yeah, no, that's key. And it's hard, right? Because we grow up as me.
Yeah.
And then the scripture says it's two becomes one, but it's a hard concept to grasp. But once you get it, though, like you did, and whatever it takes, analogy or metaphor, whatever it is that triggers you to say, oh yeah, now I get it, then it totally changes the dynamic, and those conflicts go away, or you're able to deal with these things a little bit better. It's not like we don't have arguments, but we just are able to deal with it and come to agreement better.
And I think the amazing thing is that the outcome, like this is the plan, right? The plan is like two coming together is going to have a bigger impact, is going to have a more positive influence. Things are going to go further and better because we do have each other.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's really what I've seen in my life for sure. Like we are both better people, and we do better because of each other.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, two is better than one for sure. And there's synergy, in the two of you. It's not just 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 3 or 4.
So I am curious, and we're at time, but I am curious on, do you work with people that are like selling their business to their kids, is going into the next generation, or is it generational business? It's moving from thing to thing. And does that bring up whole other conflicts in the relationship? Is that a tougher situation or same type of concept?
It can be, right? Depends on how well they did it on the beginning side of the relationship and the business. And we have had those, but majority of our clients are in more the under 40. And so they're in that.
They're in their first.
Yeah. And it's what we want to do, because we want to help them prepare for succession. Because too many times the clients we have helped in that, when they're in that succession mode, is they're in their 70s and now they have to do something. And that's not a good way to start to prepare the next generation to take over something, is when you have to send it over. You want them to almost grow up in the business in a way that now they just naturally take over, that the transition is very seamless, where the employees don't even realize there's been a transition, because we had a leader, but then we had the next generation come in, and they've slowly worked themselves up and had the experience and know people, know the business. And next thing you know, they position themselves into leadership just almost organically without the title. Next thing, the team is referring to them.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing.
And so that's what we love to do. And so that's for whatever reason. And we've had that on our heart, but for some reason, I just realized this last year, because I'm like, we really need to help these companies earlier on to prepare for succession, even if they're just kids or teenagers. And as I audited our client list last year, I was like, oh, they're all under 40. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess we're already doing it. And just unintentionally, organically, it's happened. But yeah, but does it mean that someone in their 60s or 70s can't get help from us? No, we can. It does get a little bit challenging and stickier, because when you get older, a lot of times, if you want to hand it over to your kids, a lot of times the kids have done something, are already doing something different.
Right.
Or they might be in the business, but they're not sure they want to take it over because of X, Y, and Z. There's a number of issues that can happen. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that the founder is too controlling. And they're like, I don't know if I want to try and take over, because he's going to still be around trying to nitpick everything I do. Which happened to my father-in-law's. So anyways, yeah, so certainly we can work with them, but we love kind of the 40 and unders, because we get to help them build something, but also prepare. Even with, it's fun. It's a fun thing when they have kids. They're less, younger than teenagers, into their teenage years, to get the kids involved in the business. And at that point, it's more on the fun level. It's not about having them work the business, although when they get teenagers, they can be, but it's having them participate in a fun way.
Yeah.
If getting in the conversation about the business. When we go on vacation, this is why. When we're going to dinner celebrate, this is why. Or if we have to tighten our belt, this is why. Right? So they really understand, what the business is about, and some of the consequences of the celebratory and the successes and challenges, and even get them to play games around, how they would, create their own business, something like that. But anyways, it's a fun time. It's a fun age a fun age to deal with the business owners when they're with those kind of young kids.
I love that. It just makes so much sense if you do it intentionally, right? The right way from the beginning, and you're really focused on that, then you're going to have a different outcome than if you have to go back and try to fix something from the end. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sounds like you guys are in a great sweet spot. So for people that are listening, we do have a great listenership of entrepreneurs. I can see this applying to a lot of them. For people listening, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Sounds like they can just Google, right? So what should they Google?
But you can just go, if you Google marriage and business coach, we'll pull up. I think we're still number one on Google, but easier if just marriedentrepreneur.co. That's a great place to start. We have our free resources, our book. You can buy our book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance, is on there. And we have our own podcast, Thriving in Tandem, that's on there. And then there's a contact form. If you want to chat with us for 30 minutes, there's a scheduling form on there too. So there's one way or another, however you want to get a hold of us, that's the best place to start from.
Great. And your book, Leading with Tandem, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Tandem. Yeah, Tandem. And the subtitle is The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance.
Is that on Amazon too?
It's on Amazon, yeah. Okay. And you can just right off our website. But yeah, so it addresses both sides of the issue, the marriage and the business. It's not just a marriage book. It's a kind of a marriage and a business book, basically in one.
Okay, we will share the links in the podcast with everyone. So you'll just be able to click through and either get the book or contact Robert and his wife. And thank you so much. You gave some incredible information today, and I think really valuable takeaways.
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it. You're a great interviewer.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Beacon Way. We hope you enjoyed it and had some good takeaways. Please subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And if you've enjoyed the show, please give us some stars on your podcast channel of choice. For more information, tips, and notes from the show, check us out at beaconmm.com. For more information on how Beacon can help market your business, email us at welcome@beaconmm.com.